my topic is about design for virtual reality. So we are not really going to talk about how to code for it, not even about the graphical side of how are we going to put the best picture in VR or put the best model in virtual reality. It's actually more about the product design part. Even before we start making anything for virtual reality, there are a lot of things we actually need to put into consideration before we even start thinking about or start finding the team to make the project. And a little bit about my background. I'm the Google developer expert for wearable and IoT, and I also have a YouTube channel where I teach people how to code, including making video games and hardware, and of course, some life stories about being a developer. I have been in the game industry for over 10 years. I started as Flash developer. I don't know if you guys still have Flash running on your computer, but back at that time, it was really popular. That's what got me into video games. Right now, I work on various projects, like from Peppa Pigs. I helped them release their iPad game just late last year. And I help a lot of movie companies make their trailers in virtual reality. And right now, my current client, I help them create interactive meditation experience. So they help people to reach a better mindfulness and with better breathing practice, just pretty much help people reach a more peaceful mind stage. And my story about virtual reality is started about 5 years ago. I got a project, it's called Insidious 3. It was a horror movie. So pretty much what they want to do, they want to have a trailer with Oculus Rift, the first version, installed, and drive around the US. From that project, there are a lot of things I learned, and also I continued my career by focusing on virtual reality. Often I have a lot of people coming to me, they say, Macy, we have a game that's already done in 3D. Let's just convert it into virtual reality. But no, not so fast. It's not like that. To be honest, a lot of traditional 3D games, they're not virtual reality ready. And often, it's not just a copy and paste. You take a copy of something, you put it over another place, it's gonna work. It's like, almost like you say, I have an iPhone game and it's gonna work on Android for sure. It's not a guaranteed thing. And especially in entertainment content. You see this is a scene of a show, right? You see everyone looked perfect and perfect angle, and the hair was done, and the house was beautiful. But when they were really filming it, the reality is everything is all pieced together. And you only see very small angle of the scene. But in virtual reality, we need to see more than that. We have left side, right side, top side, and back side. And a lot of traditional 3D games, because of performance and also saving some budget, they did not really spend that much effort on developing the surrounding areas. And we need true 360, not just one directional 3D. That's the big barrier from traditional 3D games to virtual reality. And so here is a project I worked with Canadian Tire. So they're a home hardware company. They help people pretty much sell hardware, and this is a project I did for them for the headlight. So this is Banff. It's a very beautiful place. You can see, it's just so much more render involved. They actually filmed this before they even considered going to make it into virtual reality. And if it's just a traditional 360 movie, you will see you have around the car, you have different, it's very dark, but you can see the whole car has to be rendered. Actually, a lot of Photoshop has done later on because of footage. When they were filming it, the roof was really had no enough lighting, so I had to Photoshop it. And also the back seat, it's not bright enough, but it's empty. They purposely made it empty. And the driver, you can see her face here, but the main focus is the road. But by making it into virtual reality, they actually have to have all surrounding record of that footage. And here, the display is added later, and everything, including the assets, or added later. And initially, they came to me, they want... temperature is -12 degrees And so they would say, oh, at a certain point, we want this audio trigger. I mean, I can do timing-wise things, but they also request certain thing if there's a sign at a certain time and certain place, they want to pop up a sign. But that's just really hard to do because it's in a game development perspective, we're just getting a picture. We don't know where exactly is a yellow dot moving towards us. And also there's a lot of distortions. So this is a lot of things that actually need to think about it before the project started instead of they have all the footage was done and then requesting all the features later. Often I have to get into a battle with designers because they want everything being filmed. As a developer, we often want everything is being modeled in an actual 3D model. So that's a lot of things we actually have to think about it before the project even started. Do we need to have everything filmed, or we want actually have them being modeled in 3D? Being modeled in 3D means developers will have more access to that object instead of if it's just in a 360 surrounding picture or videos, we really cannot have too much control over it. So let's move to next one.
It's clear.
I think they want me finish this slide, but we're gonna continue here. So scope is a very, very critical thing when it comes to virtual reality. As a lot of people talking to me, Macy, I'm gonna start my new virtual reality project. I often ask them, which device you're going to start first, because it is not that straightforward. There's so many virtual reality or mixed reality or other reality headset out there. And we need to really choose. The first decision is, do we want to go mobile or desktops? A lot of commercial makes today's smartphones look so powerful. It's okay, it's like 4K, it's more powerful than your laptop. But to be honest, they're not. And the quality over the compared with mobile and desktop just still so big in terms of gaming. You can even tell by the quality. And on the right hand side, of course, it's a PC game. You can have real-time graphs. On the left hand side, it's a mobile game. Everything's really cubey-ish. I think it's a good way they're solving low quality graphic by choose low polygon. It's like less detailed object versus very high quality objects. So before we start making any virtual reality products, we need to actually make that decision. Do we want our project look picturesque, like so beautiful, or we just want it run everywhere? That's the very, very first decision we have to make. And you can see the differences from a very smooth face to my right-hand side, less detailed face. You have different draw calls. That's in artists, usually they will say how many draw calls, like how many polygons I can have on a model. Of course, on the other side, the face is more smooth, so you see more details. If you have more machine powers, you actually can see hair. Hair is very, very expensive in game development. If you have see very furry animals, usually you only see it on desktop games. You don't see that on mobile games because anything furry or water, like wavy, that kind of effects is very costly, and most mobile phones couldn't run it. So that's why even before we start picking a device, we have to decide, do we want to go mobile or desktop? If we choose mobile, the graphic quality is not going to be as good for desktops because desktop players have very high expectations. They've played a lot of great games. If your game don't look that good, they will be disappointed. But if you just choose desktop, then guarantee your game has to be remade for mobile. So benefits of PC, of course, as I mentioned, you have better graphics, and it's truly 4K. A lot of mobile phones are not really 4K because the screen is so small, you don't really even can tell the differences. And even for desktop, there's only like latest graphic card being supported by virtual reality. So we need to put the cost into consideration. One piece of that costs $1,000 or $800 US. So that's pretty expensive. A lot more people even have 2 graphic cards. So estimate your PC will cost like $3,000 to $4,000 just by having those graphic cards. And of course, better controllers. In most mobile virtual reality, we only get a controller with a button on it. But with desktop virtual reality, we get like finger controls, we get space tracking, and like all the fancy stuff. And of course, the experience with desktop virtual reality is guaranteed richer. You get like a whole experience. But on the other hand, mobile is cool because everyone has a mobile phone. Not everyone gonna spend $5,000 to get desktop virtual reality headset. So user movement, as I mentioned, there is actual room tracking in desktop VR, but not on mobile. On mobile, we only have accelerometer. It only tells you you're rotating, but it does not tell you you're moving left or right. Benefits of mobile, of course, it's more accessible. Everyone has a modern like smartphone. You could just run Google Cardboard out of the box. And it's easy. I would say today's virtual reality is still not that easy to set up. You have a lot more things. If you can see, I have 2 bags here. Those are my desktop virtual reality gigs are heavy, and you have so many wires. So of course, with mobile virtual reality, the setup is easier. So it's less hurdles for your users actually just try to experience your app. And after we made the decision, okay, Macy, I'm gonna go mobile or I'm gonna go desktop, we actually still need to choose a device because there's so many virtual reality headsets out there for desktops and for mobile. And making a game takes time, and we just need to find our first goal, right? Once it is successful on one device, then we can spend more effort on other device. It's like making a mobile app. We want it work on one platform first, and on iPad first, on iPhone first, on Android tablet first, on Android phone first. So which version of Android phone? It's a very, very important target we actually need to set up when we even starting the game. So here are those circles of the current popular virtual reality headsets out there. Blue ones are the desktop ones, orange ones are the mobile ones. You can see those are the major ones, or definitely there are more, but it's just for example. And Windows mixed reality headset is really cool, but it just released, so often we're not gonna choose it. And then also Sony VR, because all the Japanese game studios, they're very protective. It's not really an open platform for regular developer. Unless you are a big game studio or you already have a licensing agreement with Sony, you're less likely to be able to publish your game with them or even get a developer access. So those two, no. Then we have the other ones. And we have to remove Daydream because it's a very particular headset and expensive, of course. Then we left with Gear VR, Google Cardboard, Oculus Rift, and HTC Vive. And then I moved the other two. First is because HTC Vive and Google Cardboard, they have their own version of SDK. And why usually developers are picking Oculus Rift and Gear VR first is actually because the Oculus SDK is cross those two platforms. So once your game works on Oculus Rift, it's gonna work on Gear VR. Once your code works on Gear VR, it will work on Oculus Rift. And that's probably the easiest way for developers to launch their first virtual reality app. You have one SDK, one engine, already support mobile and desktop, and with less effort. And of course, we can still go back to support other platforms, but like the first goal always by most developers nowadays are targeting Oculus VR. And of course, Oculus VR is winning for the developers, and also they're selling pretty well, especially for Gear VR. It's sold like millions of headsets, and a lot of 360 movie makers love Gear VR. They always carry them around and show people their new videos in 360, and it's just very, very popular. And let's talk about the cost. I think I mentioned a little bit about it. I think we still need to think about it when it comes to developing for it, because not everyone has that much budget to buy all the things just to make things. And also our audiences may not even have that much money just to throw around thousands of dollars, right? And here's a breakdown of exact hardware costs for the virtual reality. Like ranges from hundreds to thousands. Of course, for the desktop version, it's very, very expensive. It could be up to like $3,000. And Sony VR is actually at a very sweet price spot. I think they're definitely losing money by selling it. And the quality of it, it's actually really similar to mobile. So you're not really quite getting a desktop virtual reality experience, but at the same time, it's just very affordable. And let's talk about statistics. I think I talked about like vague numbers, but here's some real numbers. The volume share, of course, mobile virtual reality has most shares. So when we start thinking of making apps or games for virtual reality, sometimes our goal is not really aimed for profit. It's actually aimed for the popularity, get more people on our apps, on our platform. And of course, game console and PC are still popular, it's just not as accessible as mobile devices. And the value share, the money they're making, consoles are making more money because mobile ones just really affordable, like $3 or $10. Of course, they're not making that much money off it. And it's another reason I will mention later about why it's less money on mobile. Then our question is quality versus quantity, right? And we need to pick a device. There's so many out there. And that's a real number. According to some unverified sources, there are over 10 million Google Cardboard shipped and 5 million Gear VR shipped. And all the desktop VR, they're shipped slightly, actually a lot less. Apparently Sony VR is a winner, but then we can't really just simply publish a game for it. Ship the most, let's break it down by the chart. Google Cardboard actually is a winner on those VR field. Everyone has a Google Cardboard, and if you don't, talk to me, I will give you one. So if you just want your app to be accessible by millions more people, Google Cardboard is definitely a good choice. However, you don't make money on Google Cardboard. Most Google Cardboard apps are free and only like a few paid ones, but they're still not super profitable. And there is no in-app purchases and no monetization, no VR ads supported. So you're pretty much thinking of doing it for the awareness of your company. A lot of companies choose to do it because they just want to have their app being demoed at a show, have their user getting it. That's a really good scenario for Google Cardboard. But if you're aiming for making an app in a short term, get direct profit from Cardboard, it's very, very hard. And yeah, like no in-app purchases, but on the other hand, on desktop, virtual reality and Sony VR, people paying, this is in Canadian dollars, so pretty much like you think about $50 for virtual reality games. So there are a lot of game developers already made millions of dollars on Steam VR just by publish their virtual reality games on those platforms. And yeah, so based on your business model, based on your requirement for your client or yourself, you pick long-term profit, more awareness, or direct paid, like pay-to-play kind of traditional model. And to be honest, from an independent developer perspective, I actually a bit more prefer publish some high-quality games and people just buying and enjoy my game. So users often pay a lot for virtual reality desktop games. And more players versus more direct profits. I think that's a very, very big decision a lot of companies has to make. And my information is there. Hope they help you to make your decision. And integrate controllers? It's so far. Wow, Macy, why you jump to integrate controllers? Because I think it has to do with cost as well. I don't know if you guys heard, like every time the company will release their headset first and then release their controllers. That put developer into a very, very awkward spot. Like, oh, all my users have this like amazing headset, but have no controllers. Have any of you tried the mixed reality headset from Microsoft? You have to use a mouse, right? Because they did not release a motion controller until last month. So I had to use like an actual mouse to play a virtual reality like app with my headset. And I don't know, like if I'm gonna make an app, should I expecting my audiences having the controllers? And every controller looks so different. The integration is so different. And like look at those, like that's for Oculus Rift. It has a ring, it has a finger tracking. So should I implement finger tracking to my game or not? How many of them actually bought that new like touch controllers? They're $200, right? And the other side, the Sony VR, like you buy the Sony Gear VR 3, Sony VR 399 only including the headset. You're not getting that like 2 controllers. So should I expecting my players gonna spend another $300 getting that controllers? That's another question. Same thing as Samsung Gear VR. They just announced their clicking controller like this year. So should I expecting it? Should I expecting all my audiences with the Gear VR will have that extra controllers? That's another consideration we need to really put into. And also integrate controller takes time. What if I spend 3 months integrate that particular controllers, but nobody has it and they don't even know how to use it because it looks so foreign, right? And if we don't integrate controller, then virtual reality experience is more like looking straight for 3 seconds and then confirm. Are you sure you want to confirm? Yes, stay there for 3 seconds. And the whole experience gets so boring. I'm just gonna stand still for another 3 seconds. So you cannot play action games. It's no shooting. You cannot wait 3 seconds, say if you want to fire or not, right? So that's another very, very big challenge for developers. We have so many hurdles and so many uncertainties. I think the best scenario is actually like in a demo scenario. I know what I'm gonna make, I know what I have, I know who are my audiences, so it's more certain. But with like any bigger project, if we're gonna ship to a larger audiences, there are a lot of variables we have to actually put into consideration before we start even like hiring a developer, hire the designer, buy all the things. Like we really need to know who are our customers, what they have and what they want. And that's one of my favorite controller integration. That's why I wish if I could integrate controllers everywhere. It's a tail brush. Many of you may have played it. It's a game studio that made a live 3D drawing app on virtual reality. Initially, it released for HTC Vive, and the company soon be acquired by Google, and then soon Google bought like some stuff from HTC. I understand why, because HTC is just doing it so well. They're the innovator with these kind of controllers, because before all the virtual reality control were like the staring 3 seconds and then confirm, right? So I have HTC Vive here. I will set it up, and we can play together after my talk. And yes, so that's the question we have to think about. Do we want our game just work with staring and confirm, or we want it to work so well like the tail brush? It looks so natural to draw with space, and you move around, you have like palette, you can choose colors. And the real VR, I think we all know. Have you guys been to Epcot? It's like the nearby. I visited that park about 3 months ago. I was really impressed. It was being built like 1982, I think. It cost them millions of dollars to build this mission space. If you still have some time, you have never been to this ride, please go. It's like old-fashioned virtual reality. They have the whole thing set up. You will feel like 0G. You actually have like a pilot seat. I was a pilot, and you can look through the screen, see how you landed. It cost them millions of dollars to build that at that time. And today, like, okay, there are some baby cars. It's not just for babies. That's what I was just gonna say. I really enjoyed it. It's another one, like you fly through, you smell the grass. They were like shooting things at you. It's like, that's virtual reality. They built this in 1980s, but it was really expensive. But today, we can reach that with a more affordable price. There's a new installation. I'm not sure if it's existed in other cities. It's the Ghostbuster VR installation. They do have one in Toronto, so they rigged the whole room with virtual reality headset, and all the doors are rigged. When you open the door, it actually opens the door in the virtual reality games, and they have custom controllers. It's like pretend to be a torch. You actually have to reach to like certain area to light it up, and it will be like a real torch light up in your game. I really like how it goes, like virtual reality goes into our real life and then it reacting in our virtual world. I really like the trend with virtual reality. I think we can be way more creative with virtual reality or mixed reality or augmented reality. And not to mention, well, those controllers are open sourced. Valve open sourced all their position tracker, and controllers. That's why all the other manufacturers were able to innovate on virtual reality controllers. There are like hundreds of them out there, and I believe maybe one of us can figure out the best way to really interact in VR in like next 5 years and make it even better, right? So it's a time for integration. Like, it's the best time to invent new controllers, invent new hardwares, invent new games and new experiences and new interactive experiences with virtual reality. And the virtual reality in the near future, I believe it's gonna be mixed reality with virtual world integrated with our real world. And thank you. I do have a little demo. So actually that's what I'm gonna be demoing in another booth. I will go set it up. And I made a circus simulator. So some of you, I mentioned I'm an IoT expert and also wearable, some very interesting hardware. And what I realized is prototyping hardware takes a lot of time. It's not like a Git repository. You just git pull or git clone, you get a new source code. With hardware, you actually have to order all the parts. And some companies, they don't ship individual pieces. You have to actually call them to convince them to ship you one component, because most of the time they only work with large manufacturers. They don't ship small orders. So I figured if there is some ways that can make integrating or practicing learning circuit electronics easier. There are softwares out there. They're very, very expensive. There's one called Multisim. It's like thousands of dollars only for businesses, and it does expires, and it's not very useful. And I feel that, I think this is one of the biggest barriers for people who want to learn about hardware, the access to knowledge and also materials. So this demo is basically show you how to set up a LED. I did not put a resistor there, but in a perfect scenario, you need to have a resistor or it's gonna blow. But that's the demo, and you guys can play it once I set it up. And yeah, we're still learning. And thank you. And you can find me on Twitter at MacyKuang, and I have a YouTube channel. We'll teach you more about hardware and virtual reality. It's called Code to Create. And thank you.